All right, welcome back to the Green Bananas Turn Yellow podcast. This is the place to be if you just want to chill and, talk all things Survivor. As always, I'm your host, Mihir, and today we are joined by a very, very special guest. He is an amazing content creator. He does movie reviews on TikTok. Not only that, but he's actually good friends with Bryce Johnston from the Survivor community. And he also happens to be a fellow content creator and a good friend of mine. So joining me on the pod today is my good friend, Mr. Jimmy Gardner. Jimmy, how are you doing today, my man?
What's up, man? I'm doing really well. I'm doing really well. Season 50 has been a really exciting season for me. It is definitely, I think, like many people, it's definitely got me back into the show. The new era itself has been, we can get into that if you want, but I definitely coming out of 48 and 49 was feeling a little down. Even when I saw the cast of 50, I was feeling a little down. I wasn't too crazy about it. But where it's at now, for sure, I'm definitely feeling better about it.
Yeah, awesome. And I think I share a lot of similar thoughts. I think we're both huge Survivor fans, and the new era in particular. I think it's received a bit of a mixed reception from people like us. So I think it's great to
Hmm.
kind of just sit down and like chat about like how we feel about it. I guess with that being said, usually the first question I ask a lot of my guests is sort of like questions like what your history was with Survivor and like what was your first season and whatnot. But I think in your case, I know you and I know you've been a lifelong fan, and so kind of like on a broader scale, like what does Survivor like represent for you?
My first memory of Survivor, like my like distinct first memory of watching the show was season 1, episode 4, I believe, which is the Ramona boot episode. So going all the way back, so I guess this is like year 2001-ish. I remember going to my mom's friend's house to watch each week. I'm not for sure if we didn't have CBS or what, but for whatever reason, we had to go to this lady's house. And I didn't really grasp what was going on, but I was really intrigued by it. And I was really interested in the diversity of the cast and all of these different people working together. And from then on, I watched pretty much every season live, up until season, like maybe like in the 20s, like the early 20s. I kind of didn't, I wasn't there the whole time, but I've caught up. And I've been with it pretty much every year since then. It Survivor kind of marks like different time periods in your life. You can kind of like think like I have certain memories of like I know where I was when Kelly Wentworth played her idol in Second Chances. Like I know like where I was at when that happened. I know where I was at when Suri was advantage getting out of the game. I'll never forget that. And this week I was already thinking like, is this where I'm gonna be at when Suri goes out on season 50? And luckily I wasn't yet, right? But the show has just always been a constant source of entertainment and community. And with all the podcasts and the watch parties that are going on now, it's really nice for me today to see a show that is still bringing all different types of people together, even though we all have different issues with different things that go on, with the production and the twists and all that we can get into. But for the most part, I have felt really good about season 50, really interested in to see where it's going to go from here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think this season has done one thing that I think this season has gotten right is it's done a great job of sort of like highlighting that shift from like old school Survivor to new school Survivor, just with the cast that we've been given. And so I think one great episode that really highlights this difference was actually yesterday's episode. It's season 50, episode 11 at the time of recording this, but yeah, so I thought today we could kind of like talk a little bit about the episode from start to finish, just because I think it would be a great sort of like social experiment to talk about it from the lens of, two people, certainly of two different like generations, and just sort of like
Right.
get like a collective view on it. So yeah, I guess
for sure.
you ready to kind of like get this experiment started?
Yes, I will for sure. Let me pause you for 1 second because I'm going to lock my cat up because he's being terrible. He's like, oh, give me 1 second. Okay. He's locked up now. I have like the most spoiled cat ever. Like, it's my fault that he's like this, but he talks, he like does all kinds of crazy shit, and he's trying to knock the light over.
Wait, well
Anyway,
at least he's
okay,
happy, you know.
back
Let's
into it. Yeah, back
You're
into it.
nothing better than having a happy animal.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so yes, last night.
right. So yeah, so last night's episode, what happened? So I thought we'd kind of just take it from start to finish. So we start the episode with the crazy Final 10 Mr. Beast Tribal Council. And we find out that the prize pool has been up to 2 million now. And with this realization, right, Rick Devens he's kind of on a high. He starts the episode doing his little like goofy dance or whatever. I remember when I watched it, I was like, okay, this is probably going to come back to bite him in the butt at some point. But he's been kind of an underdog thus far, and so not a whole lot of Survivor players get that sense of like euphoria, like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, I just did something crazy. So, I guess in that position, right? Like, how do you feel about like Devon's overall, and I guess like where he's at currently in the game?
That's a good question because I was going to ask you the same thing. Like, I don't know how you actually feel about him. Because right, like Devins is kind of one of these players that's kind of like, I don't want to say an enigma, but he's very polarizing. I hear a lot of people on podcasts and stuff talk about how like he's so entertaining to watch and like the fans love him, but like playing with him is terrible. And allegedly. I okay, so on Devin's first season, I was not a big fan. And personally, it is because anytime I'm watching these, I don't know if you do this, but anytime I'm watching these shows, I'm always thinking like who would I be getting along with? Who would I be talking to? Who would be annoying me, you know? And I used to think, even when this cast came out, I knew Rick Devens was going to be there. And I just feel like him and I would not be seeing eye to eye if we were out there, simply because I think he would probably annoy me. But watching him last night, I don't blame him at all for being excited. I think it was great that he played his idol. I'm actually more of a fan of him in 50 than I was the first time. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if maybe it's because he's being put up against someone like Joe, who I'm not a fan of at all. And so maybe like with Joe being there, it's kind of a reminder like, hey, you might think Devins is annoying, but have you ever seen a player like this who doesn't want to do anything? You know, and it reminds you, you're like, you know what? I rather just have a whole bunch of Devons running around doing whatever than just saying, we're gonna stick to the end. We're gonna be loyal and do nothing and play no game. And Joe's been like spelling the names wrong when he votes so that he hasn't voted out his allies and all that stuff. So Devin's dancing around. I liked it. I thought he did a good job. I don't want to jump to the tribal council yet, but him playing his idol later on, I thought was a good move.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of to like answer because you mentioned you had kind of the same question for me. I'm actually a huge Rick Devens fan. Like he at one point was my favorite Survivor player of all time.
Nice.
I think it's just the Gen Z in me that's like really kind of like really invested in those like screen hogs, and I think that's kind of
Yeah.
what Rick Devens has been, both in Edge of Extinction and I'd say this season too. He's
Yep.
gotten a lot of screen time.
Yes.
And I guess that kind of like leads me to my next question, which is since Rick Devens has been such a big personality this season, mostly because of the fact that he's just such an entertaining, energetic guy, maybe sometimes not in the best ways, but he's still very like energetic, right?
Hmm.
As sort of like a movie reviewer, right? Like, do you think the edit's just kind of like playing in towards that and like sort of rewarding players who have those bigger personalities as opposed to like maybe the more of the quiet strategists like, like the Emilys or or the Joes of the game?
One thing I think that's not talked about enough, and maybe it's because some of the Survivor podcasting that maybe you and I stumble on usually involves maybe I often think that a lot of survivors are talking about the show with people who have played. And so they have a different perspective, right? I think that there's a big metagame that goes on out there, especially in a returning season. Again, anyone can come for me and say that that is wrong, but because I've never played, I'm not necessarily interested in playing at all, but I would. However, I think that there is that idea there of making TV. I know that I would be thinking about the meta narrative, the edit. I would be thinking about, I've always thought, like, are we not sitting there thinking about how is this episode being constructed in the end? And where do I play in that? So if you have Rick Devens running around finding idols, like the Mr. Beast thing aligning with him was perfect. That could have not worked in a better way. Like it could have not been anyone more better than to have him do it. Like they just lucked out on that. Could have really went wrong in my opinion, but it went well. So I think that those characters, those people who are being a character like a coach, they know that that storyline is being made around them in a certain type of way. Whereas maybe someone like Emily or Aubrey, who's playing maybe from the bottom in a more quieter way, not flashy out up in the front, even though Emily is often doing her own type of entertaining, right? Um, Maybe are taking a step back and taking a step away and watching those big characters like the Devons and the coaches run around and do what they're doing. But I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I think if you're out there on season 50 and you're returning and it's your time to shine, only one person is winning. Like you know what I mean? They know
Yeah,
only
you
one
gotta
person's
go
winning.
all out, you know.
So be here and put on a show. And I think that's where maybe I've come around on Devons because maybe when I was watching back in the day, I wasn't thinking of it like that. But now I'm thinking you're out there. He is probably so excited to be out there in season 50. Just go off. Just go. You know what I mean? I'm fine with it as long as it doesn't hurt Suri. I don't care. But yeah, I think what Devins was doing at the beginning of this episode is um I think that that is his character arc. I have a hard time. I don't know about you. We've never talked about this, but and this might be a little off the topic, but I have a hard time battling in my brain watching the show and then the film teacher side of me talking about the edit, right? And thinking about why we've put this clip here and why we need to see it through this person's point of view. And that edgic edit watching, can kind of get you in trouble, can be a little spoilery at times, because you just can feel it, but I don't really know what else they're supposed to do. But
Yeah, yeah, no, and you bring up a good point because I also do watch Survivor with that mindset, right? Because like you, I'm always trying to like identify like who's getting the winners at it at a certain point in a season, and so I think like really like recently in Survivor, I think the edit's kind of been baiting a lot of people. I
hmm
think 41 in particular was a really clear example of like edgic baiting, if you will, because
hmm
I don't know if you've seen 41, but like Tiffany
yeah,
was like her edit in like the pre-merge was so strong. Everyone thought like she would be the eventual winner, right? And then she gets booted, like she becomes the first jury member. And so that
hmm
like moments like that, they make for really clear, sort of edgic blindsides in a sense. And so I have
yes.
a feeling
Didn't
this
Erica,
season,
was it Erica that won that?
yeah, Erica won
And she had like
Survivor.
a real quiet edit.
Yeah, she had a really
Yeah.
a lot of people thought she was almost like purpled in a sense on her
hmm
season. And so I
Yeah.
think that's just the result of like a lot of super fans both being cast and a lot more super fans watching the show. They have to keep the show relevant and like keep people on their toes. So they're like, okay, from an editing perspective, why not simply just like bait the audience edit wise, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Well, and also I always think that whether they would never admit this or not, I think also the ending result plays a factor into the edit. We know that there are circumstances of players being edited in a bad way as retaliation for something that they have done. We know that people have been edited in a purple edit because they've quit or because they did not, go to their interviews or these types of things. These are things that stories that have been told. Um, I wonder if ever they are not if they're not happy with their winner. I hate to say that. No offense to Erica or whoever else, right? I don't, but look at like Natalie in season 19. Obviously, that whole edit's going to be Russell heavy. There's a different version of every show. There's a different version of every season where a different player is edited as the main storyteller. I wish that there was a world where we could see all the versions of the same season through each of the final five or final six perspective. We would see a whole different storyline. But we are seeing what they need us to see for whoever wins. And knowing that where we're at in Survivor 50, you start to look at it and analyze it in a whatever way. But
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I guess kind of a follow up would be like, who was your winner pick coming into the season, and like, has it like shifted as a result of the edit? I guess you could say.
yes, my winner pick going into the season is I was looking at those typical type of players that win these seasons in some cases, the Tiffany's, the Amber, the Sarah Lucina, the female player who you kind of are like, why are they here? And they kind of sneak on in towards the end. So I think that those type of players have a really good shot. As Cerie's my winner pick always forever, right? But like I don't really know if that's going to happen. As things are shifting, I'm still holding hope for Cerie. I see hope for Tiffany. And then I think we're all noticing this really strong push with the Aubrey edit, and that is where my editing mind is like, uh, why do I need for example, with the food auction, why do I need Aubrey's perspective on what's going on with other people getting their rewards? There's just a lot of times we're going to her POV for no reason. Now, if Aubrey wins season 50, this might be a hot take, but if Aubrey wins season 50, I don't know that production probably loved that. I think that maybe I'm not sure if this was true, but wasn't one of the big rumors that Aubrey was a fill-in for Amanda? Did you hear this?
Yeah, I heard
Like
there was a
Aubrey
lot of
wasn't in
people
the
considered
original group.
for like a female role for Survivor 50.
Hmm.
I did not know that. She was an alternate for Amanda though.
And I don't know that she's exactly an alternate, but I know that that's just kind of like the word on, Twitter X or whatever. But anyway, I I guess we could talk about Aubrey too. You're feeling Aubrey is just such an interesting person to me. I don't dislike her. I have several fans that I know that are not fans of Aubrey, that are fans of the show. I have found her. I was just very surprised that she came back to season 50. I think she was like one of the most surprising ones. I could not believe she came back to do this again. And if she wins this, if she came back to do this and then she won, that's just crazy. I don't know. That's just going to be that's just crazy to me, and I just don't know that that's maybe who they wanted to win Survivor season 50. But again, I truly am not spoiled on the season. There are people out there who are. I've been avoiding them like the plague. So I really don't know what happens. So
Yeah, yeah, and like we've only got like what, two more episodes left to find out
two
anyway.
episodes left.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean it's going by really fast. I'm kind of in the same position as you. I don't really know who is gonna come out on top at this point. And I guess with that being said, that kind of segues us to the immunity challenge, which was the classic. I don't know the exact like name for it, but it's like the doghouse one where they're like
Hmm.
balancing in the water and whatnot. They've been doing this challenge for a long time. Um, I guess sort of as someone who's like seen how challenges like evolved in Survivor over the years, I'm kind of curious like what your thoughts are on like the challenges they've had in the new era because personally I felt that they've kind of reused the same challenges in like multiple seasons in the new era, and I feel like they have some room to like innovate. So I didn't know if you
Hmm.
had like a different perspective on that.
I think I think maybe the majority of people would say that they miss kind of the older challenges. Like and I'm horrible at like challenge names. There's people that like know the names of the challenges. They know the names of every tribe everyone's ever been on. I don't know it like that, but I think long gone are the days of them like wrestling for something, right? Like chasing each other, even though I loved that. But I like in the individual portion these individual immunity challenges. I'm fine with an endurance challenge. If they want to hang on a pole, stand on a doghouse, balance a ball, like I like those. It is the long challenges that are so repetitive where it's like sometimes they're putting stuff in these challenges just for the sake of putting stuff in, right? So you'll have like a long relay challenge and there'll be like a section of the challenge that's like, just crawl through this little net or like just, do this little minute thing. And for the most part, everyone does it and moves on. It feels like such a waste to me sometimes. And then it'll always end in a puzzle. And I'm more of a puzzle guy, but I don't need it to always end in that. And so I like this challenge, this stand on the perch kind of challenge. I do not like that production does not want these challenges to run long anymore. The idea that we've put this time limit on, and I know it's because of production scheduling and the short seasons, and there's nothing we can do about it. But back in the day, you would just stand there. I mean, think of the challenge from Palau with Tom and Ian. They're like standing on these poles, and
Yeah,
they
the
were
Baba
just, I
Booey
remember
challenge.
watching that. They were there all night.
Yeah.
And I love that. I would love to see that again. And I don't think they will because, last night they're like, okay, or during this week's episode, they're like, we're going to stand on this doghouse or whatever. But then after 20 minutes, you're going to go to 1 foot. Whereas before, you would have to stand on this doghouse for hours. And then when it got to like dark, they would be like, you know what? You're going to have to stand on 1 foot. We got to go. And I like that. I miss that. I think that that's something that's really missing from it. But the challenge as a whole, this has to be, is this the only challenge where they have, is this the only challenge where they've taken it back? And like we had to go to the footage, we had to go to the camera footage. I'm maybe this has happened before, but I thought that was interesting. I've never seen this happen before. I don't think.
Yeah, no, I was just about to get into that. I don't believe this is the first time this has happened in Survivor. I remember one instance of this happening back in Survivor Thailand, season five, where
Mm-hmm.
Brian, I think, he won a challenge, but then it was miscalled because he spelled the word road in road trip incorrectly.
Okay. Yeah.
So I do remember
Yeah.
this happening. I don't know if it happened. It probably might have happened a couple times after that, but that was the
Right.
most notable instance of this happening, where they had to like cut back to like the footage of the challenge. That being said, I do think this hasn't happened in like ages on the show, so it was really interesting to
Mm-mm.
like actually get like something like this to happen, especially in the new era where Jeff literally said like, "Hey, we have like 5, 6 production people just like monitoring the challenge as it's going and like judging this." So I agree. I do think it was a really interesting thing to happen. Felt bad for Tiffany in that situation because
Oh my gosh. I
I do
know.
think she like, it must have felt like horrible for her to have to like just give up the immunity necklace, especially in a double elimination round too. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's just an unfortunate consequence of kind of like what you were talking about, just like the fact that these challenges just feel so restricted in a sense. Like they feel very
Mm-hmm.
like they have like a set amount of like time that they're scheduled for.
Mm-hmm.
So people are kind of just forced to like play along with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that I I actually did a video like a week or so ago just complaining about Jeff, just because I wanted to complain about Jeff, because he just talks so much and just drives me insane. But I think that I think that the people running Survivor have the best interests in heart. I think they do care about their product. I do not think they're bad people or anything. I think that Jeff loves the show. I think we owe a lot to Jeff for the show. However, with that being said, this new shorter format and making these challenges quicker, like if we didn't rush to 20 minutes to do that because we needed to get out of this challenge quicker, then this doesn't happen. They probably just stand on there on the top. Tiffany probably still wins. I don't know, but like I'm just saying, if they just had to stand up there for hours, Seems like she would maybe have won. And so I think that they try to get us through these challenges so quick because they got to get this show going so quick, and then they're self-conscious that it's that, well, maybe we're ripping the people off, so to compensate for that, we get all of these twists and challenges and celebrity cameos, and I feel like they think like the more we put in, like, oh, wait till you guys see this, right? And it's kind of like, oh, that's not really, a lot of us don't really want that. Like we just kind
Yeah.
of like, you really just kind of miss letting them play the game. And I think that the production team and Jeff are always a little behind. So like we will like it takes them several like years to catch up, and they're always a little behind, I think, with what people want. But um I felt really bad for Tiffany, and I don't think that that happens if they get to stand there all night long. I think she stands there all night long and she wins.
Yeah, yeah, because like Jonathan, I think like he was like stumbling, like he was visibly struggling at the end, right? And Tiffany was just kind
Mm-hmm.
of like chilling out there. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I do agree. I do think she probably does take that challenge. I think it was something to do with like the way her feet were positioned or something.
Mm-hmm.
But like even then, she did
I
lift her
think they're
foot up.
saying, yeah, that she didn't lift her foot in time. I saw a few clips where, I mean, it really did look like she didn't lift her foot in time. So at least they're being fair,
Yeah.
honestly. I didn't really want Jonathan to win it, but at least they were being fair. So then he wins, and I guess we can get into this twist because this is definitely a new twist. We've not done
Yeah.
this before.
Yeah, I was just about to get into that. So, now we kind of just get into like the strategic portion of the episode. And I think this is where I think this segment kind of just highlights a lot of how Survivor has also shifted, mainly in terms of the strategy too, because it's also not as much about like the social bonds anymore as much as it's about like okay, strategically who's the best option to eliminate at any given point. So Jonathan wins the challenge, and he gets the advantage of being able to be a part of both tribal councils of four individuals each. And then those four individuals were selected via, random selection. Um, I guess like, what did you think about like the twist as a whole? Like, at least in comparison to the other twists we've had this season. Because personally, I think it was a pretty I think compared to like for example the Blood Moon twist, this one was pretty good.
Mm.
Like I think it like
Yes.
was a lot less it was a lot less like luck dependent because the players actually had a chance to fight back.
Hmm.
But yeah, I was curious sort of like what your thoughts were on it.
I thought it was really interesting with when Rizzo said at tribal council to Jeff, it's like we're having two final five tribal councils. And I thought it was even more interesting when Jeff said something along the lines of, oh, I didn't even think of that. It's like, yeah, of course we know you didn't, Jeffrey. We know. Because it's like I did like the twist in terms of the other twists that we've had. So if you look at like the Blood Moon, the what do they even the horrible what do they even call the working in pairs that got
Yeah,
Coach
though
and
like
Christie?
one
Something
where two people
stupid.
get eliminated at once.
Yeah. Okay, so the pair twist, we'll say the Blood Moon twist, and then the split tribal twist or whatever. I liked this one the best out of all of them. I still don't love them. What I like about Survivor is that, and I guess the twister part of it, but is that there's different ways to play depending on how many people are there. And going linear from 10 people to 9 to 8 to 7 to 6, someone like me, I'm thinking, how do I play in that amount of numbers? So if I'm at 10 people and I am preparing to be at 9, so then when you say, oh no, we're splitting up, all of a sudden now you need to do your strategy for the final 5, right? It's like, well, I wasn't ready to go to the final 5 tribal council yet. And I know the pushback on that would be, well, that's the part of the show, that's the twist, be prepared for it. But I would have been pissed. But yes, I thought out of all the twists they've done, I thought that this one was fine. I liked the idea of Jonathan going back and forth. I liked the idea that you could all of a sudden I started realizing, oh, you could go back and forth multiple times, and really the power here, this is I guess the question is, do you think Jonathan's role in this twist, no matter who it was, is that person the person that gets to go back and forth and vote twice are they overpowered?
Yeah, I think that's a good perspective to bring. I
Because
think
that's a lot of power.
it is a lot of power. And this kind of reminded me of a similar concept they implemented before with the One World twist in Survivor One World, where both
Yeah.
tribes they live on the same beach, so they could kind of like
Hmm.
intermingle with one another. This kind of gave like a similar vibe to that. Now, I'm not saying One World was a particularly good season in my mind, but
Hmm.
one thing I personally appreciated about that season was that twist because it opened up so many avenues for like both strategic and social gameplay. And so I think that's a lot of what we saw this episode too with for example, in the first vote, right, Jonathan having that option to either ride with the Suri Alliance, um, or, I think personally, that gave Jonathan the opportunity to flip on Suri, an opportunity which I think he could have easily taken to get rid of
Hmm.
a big threat.
Hmm.
So it's just little things like that. I think that really was what makes this a lot better of a twist, or like a really well thought out twist in my mind.
Hmm. Well, let's look at what I thought was what I liked the most about the twist, even though I was nervous for Suri for a little bit. But what I liked the most about it was I felt like it really exposed some things, you know. So like I guess which side of the beach do you want to talk about first? Is one more
I think either or. I think a lot happened on like both sides. So I guess just like whatever like stood out to you about like either side is
well, here's the first thing that happened. Well, I guess we'll go in the order they showed us, right? So they're
yeah.
obviously they're editing it in a way to, make sure that Ozzy's tribal council's at the end. He's sorry, Emily, but he's
Yeah.
a bigger figure in the show. He's going to get more of the time. So my brain the whole time is thinking, is this a reboot edit? Because there's no way this is, because this is not how we're sending her away. So I'm like, what's going on? So when Jonathan goes over there, my first, what you just said, I thought, okay, Jonathan, Devins, Emily, they're just going to turn on Suri. I mean, I don't blame them, you know. And what I was surprised, the first thing that we saw was Jonathan go talk to Suri, and I felt like it showed us the Suri Jonathan alliance that we haven't really seen. It made me say, oh, because I'm thinking, oh, Suri, I hope you've put in the work with Jonathan. Here he comes to Suri, and I'm like, yep, she did. Good. Of course she did. So, he goes to her and is like, what are we doing, etc. And so I was like, whew, okay. So she really does have all these people thinking that they're playing with her. Now, they decide to go for Devon's, and then Emily comes up with this plan. So Emily's plan is she's going to convince them that Devon's is going to play the idol on her so that they vote for him. And really he won't, and they'll vote out Suri or whatever. I didn't think it was going to work, but I will give her credit because she was playing. She was trying to come up with something. And I rather that any day than just sit there and say, oh, I'm just going to stick with my numbers or whatever. She was doing, she tried. I mean, I would try it. Why not? But, ultimately it didn't work for her. So,
Yeah. And to give her credit, I think it really would have her, taking the initiative to like talk to Devins and create that plan, right? I think that is ultimately what made it a 2-2-0 split. I think if she hadn't done that, right, there would have been a greater chance that would have been like maybe I don't know, a 3-1-0 split and Emily would just
mm-hmm,
be gone the first round. I think because of the fact
mm-hmm,
that she did that legwork, she was able
mm-hmm,
to maneuver past that like deadlocked, or at least like make it so that the vote was deadlocked. So I think it was a as messy of a player as Emily has been thus far. I do think that was one of her stronger moves this season. And
yeah,
I think also another alliance that was really kind of cemented with this particular episode and with this vote was the Emily and Devon's alliance because
mm-hmm,
I feel like a lot of the people Emily had worked with before, like it was mostly just people like Christian and Ozzy, right? Ozzy's on a
mm-hmm,
separate, side of the beach. So, and Christian had been obviously eliminated a couple rounds prior. So, I think it really highlighted Emily's social game in the sense of like, okay, Christian and Rick were close. Emily was close with Christian, so as a result, she kind of had to be close with Rick, and she was able to like make that connection and
Yeah.
make it long lasting to the point where it pretty much saved her life, even for like a brief moment. So I think that was another cool thing that this particular tribal council highlighted.
And on that, also Sari using that extra vote, I mean, saved her. I
Oh yeah,
was
that
really
was a genius
nervous
move on her
for a
part.
minute. I'm like, there's no way she's not going to do it. And, she did. And I had told you, I didn't realize, which it makes complete sense. But when you use an extra vote, and then when they re-voted because it was a tie, she got to vote with her extra vote again. And I didn't even realize that. I read something today that I think Cerie's the first person to actually save herself with an extra vote. Like the extra vote actually saved her from being the one to be eliminated, whereas like other people had used it on other people. That was not fact checked. I just read that, but I,
Yeah, from my
you
memory, I
know,
think that's true.
yeah, and so that is great that she used that. I will glaze Suri all day, and so will everybody else, right? But I do not think Suri plays a flawless game.
So yeah, I guess that was the tribal from the Suri perspective. I do think it was
Hmm.
pretty crazy that Suri was able to survive yet another vote this season. Obviously I wasn't surprised she received votes because I do think it was kind of a long time coming, but props to her obviously for playing her extra vote. I think that was what single-handedly I feel got
Yeah,
her through.
it did. It saved her. And I make a lot of Suri content just because I love her so much. But and one of the things I get, like, you'll hear a lot of people be like, um, well, if they want to win, you got to vote her out. Like you got to get her out. Like what? And it's like, I think what a lot of people don't understand is everyone knows that. Like I would vote her out too. Like you know what I mean? But it's just Suri is just that type of player that if you've been watching for so long, like we have just went through the struggles with her. We've been through the battlefield with Suri. So like there's more of a kind of like it feels kind of like your battle, like our battle too, because you've just watched her rise and fall so many times. And so it's like, yeah, I get it. Like they need like I going into the season, I did a let me predict where everyone's gonna fall. I didn't do very well, but I didn't think Suri was making it past the merge. I mean, that's crazy to me. I thought like these people know for sure she's got to go. So, I'll give her props when it's due. But perfect transition to the other tribal, which I was going to say is one of Suri's weaknesses is that she will fight too hard for her allies sometimes and not realize like sometimes you just got to kick them off. And that might be a little bit more of that old school mentality. Like, you're my number one. We will do anything to get to the end, you and I, but the new school, sometimes you got to throw your number one out. I think if she knew that Ozzy was telling everyone about their final two, she would want Ozzy gone. And so I guess we can go over to the other tribal then, because that leads us over into what's going on the other side of the island.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a perfect transition to sort of Ozzy's perspective, the other half of the duo, if you will. So right off the bat, Ozzy makes this crazy statement to Aubrey where he's like, "Hey, I'm not gonna, I don't want to sit next to Rizzo at the end." And he pretty much just he spills his guts out about everything that's going
Hmm.
on. And at that point, I was like, old Ozzy's coming out again."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think it's unfortunate because I do think Ozzy this season, prior to this, I think he played the best game he's ever played on
Yes.
Survivor. Like
Agreed.
he really has started to embrace the strategic aspect of the game, which is something he was lacking before. And then it just felt like all of that was just kind of undone by this one slip up, right?
Hmm.
I guess just what were your thoughts on like Ozzy as a whole, and I guess this move in general, and like the way he approached this particular tribal council.
I think it's funny that the day he's separated from Sari, he messes up his whole game. Um,
Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying. I have always liked Ozzy. The social game's never really been there, but that was not the kind of player he was. And I'm not sure that old school Ozzy, I'm not sure that, him, I would have seen eye to eye with him if I were playing with him. But this newer version, I do think he was playing the best game that he's played. But I think the problem is that he was feeling it. I think he was feeling like, yeah, this is the best game I've ever played. And I think that his ego got the best of him. And he goes to Aubrey and he says all of this. And that, in my opinion, is underselling Aubrey. That's his ego, because he's sitting there thinking, I'm Ozzy, right? And who's Aubrey? But the thing with Aubrey is Aubrey says to us, then you're going to tell me all this? Like, of course I'm going to use this against you. And of course, I really was with this. Aubrey doing what she did after Ozzy told her that information is like kind of the first time that let me restart that. It's my favorite thing that she's done in 50 so far. I feel like Aubrey has just kind of been trying to survive, and I felt like she had some agency with that. Now, it was because Ozzy messed up, but I think Aubrey did what she needed to do with that information. Now, one thing that I find extremely interesting is the Rizzo of it all. We at least didn't see in the edit, which, because I think we did not see in the edit Ozzy telling Aubrey about Rizzo being part of the trio. Rizzo, Suri, Ozzy. He says that he's close with Suri, but we didn't see him say about Rizzo. And I think part of that is because he thought Rizzo was voting with him that night. And so I think that might save Rizzo and Suri a little bit, them too, even though Ozzy, I definitely did some damage on his way out. And so then Suri doesn't know this, right? So Suri is like, how do I get Rizzo to save Ozzy? And I think the idea is that Suri's going to be mad when she sees Ozzy is gone this week. But I think once she finds out from Rizzo, no, Ozzy told everyone about, I think she'll be glad that he's gone, because he went wild. He
Right.
became a loose cannon. But what's more interesting on top of that then is Rizzo says to us, I know Suri would want me to tell Ozzy so he plays his idol. And Rizzo does not do that. He does have his own agency. He does not do that. So what did you think of that? Of Rizzo saying, he clearly made a decision to not tell Ozzy this.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because Rizzo and Suri have been just so aligned throughout this game, right? It's that unexpected alliance that honestly, yeah, did control a lot of the votes, especially in the pre-merge. I think, for example, the Charlie vote, that was all Rizzo and Suri. So these are two people that like clearly have that level of trust, right? And I feel like Suri would view Rizzo as a valuable ally, almost in the sense of Ozzy. So it's like kind of like her relationship with Ozzy, but Rizzo's got more of that strategic mindset. So that would obviously, if I were Suri, that would make Rizzo more of an attractive candidate as like an
Mm-hmm.
ally, right? So I thought it was really interesting that Rizzo just didn't tell Ozzy to like play his idol at like any point, just because he thought, okay, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to beat Ozzy at the end. And I think that kind of like ties into this perception of like, challenge capabilities. I think challenge capabilities do play like a big role in getting people out in the post merge of Survivor, as more so than the pre merge, obviously, because you need people who are like challenge beasts to at least have a chance of winning some of those early immunity
Mm-hmm.
challenges. But a common tactic a common tactic that we've seen in like post merge Survivor is like, let's cut the challenge threats at like 8, 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that might have been one of the key reasons why, Rizzo just opted to just pretty much participate in the blind side of Ozzy, because he had
Mm-hmm.
proven himself to be a challenge beast throughout his Survivor career. And there was also the fact that like because he was so loose-lipped about, his whole like mindset of like everyone, right? That would also lead him to possibly being like a loose cannon maybe 3 steps down the road. So I think when you factor all that in, like Rizzo turning on Ozzy, it was a smart move, but I
Mm-hmm.
do think it would obviously fracture the Rizzo and Suri relationship. So, and I
I
think if
think
you,
what we see, go ahead.
I was gonna say like I feel like if you mess with Suri, there's a good chance you're probably gonna get voted out at some point. So I don't know if
I
that helped.
agree. No, I agree. I think Rizzo is smart, and I think that what we will see next week with him is, if they show it, is I think that he, as soon as they get back, he's going to Surrey and he's saying, "Listen, I know, Ozzy was gone, blah, blah, blah. But I think that he, because of what Ozzy was doing, ratting out everything, blah, 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 telling people that Suri had the extra vote, which I'm so glad she used now, because now that target's gone, much like Aubrey's idol. Like, he told people she had it, but now she can say, look, I used it, it's gone. But he'll go back to her and he's going to say to her, Ozzy had to go loose lips, sink ships. He was saying all this stuff, and she's going to have the proof of it. I think that her and Rizzo can move on a little bit from it, but we're just getting to a point in the game now where there's no place to hide. But before that, so they go to tribal council. Now, what about this? Ozzy, for the second time, I think the only other he did this in Survivor Micronesia, right?
Micronesia,
He
yes.
gets voted out with an idol in his pocket again. I just could not believe that this was happening on Survivor 50.
Yeah, and I think that really just goes to, I think that's kind of what I was mentioning earlier about the like old school mindset, because that idea of long lasting trust is just such a
Mm-hmm.
prevalent idea in a lot of like old school players' minds. So I think it was just, he just put his eggs in the wrong basket, put too much faith in the people that he was aligned with, and, ultimately it cost him. Now, truth be told, if I was Ozzy in that situation, regardless of where I'm at in the game, I am playing my idol. Like I'm not risking it at any point. So yeah, I mean,
It's just almost like the worst of the worst, right?
worst of
Because
the
it's a
worst. Yeah,
one
the
in
minute I
four.
saw Ozzy sit on his idol, I was like, yeah, he's cooked. There's no way he's surviving this.
If he goes home, if this was a normal tribal council and he goes home at the final eight with an idol in his pocket, it's still bad, but it would be a little bit better than this these types of twists, this split twist, and now the group's only 4 or 5 or whatever. That is like no question to me. Play your idol, play your extra vote. Like, you just, anytime you get put in these very weird configurations that you weren't prepared for, you haven't been sitting on the beach thinking about this because you didn't know it was a possibility, which again is a problem I have with the twist, because I I like to know all my possibilities so that I can game for them. So I'm not good with it, like the unpredictability, because I'm like, that's not fair. Like, I wasn't able to game for this because I didn't know this was even a thing. In that moment, play the idol. Like, what are you doing? I just could not believe he did it. But I will say, I liked that you could tell this was a lot of these new era tribal councils have been too friendly for me. I like some blood to be spilled. They've been a little too like, oh, you got me, kind of like we're playing Monopoly at our house. And it's like, he was mad.
Yeah, yeah.
It
So you
felt
want some like
cold.
bitter tribal council reactions.
Oh, it was good. I loved it. I was like, oh, he's mad. You could tell they felt kind of awkward. Aubrey
Yeah.
really not lightly's like, sorry. Like, it just felt so. I
Yeah.
would have loved
What do you
being on
think
the
about the
jury for that.
fact that like Ozzy was all like, "Oh, I had a dream about this last night, and like I should have just trusted my intuition."
I mean, I guess he did. I mean, I don't know. I've never had a dream that predicted anything in my life yet, but if that happened to me and I had that dream, and then the next day was this challenge, and now we're divided into four, and Cerie's not here anymore, I would have thought, oh, we're playing this idol then. I it makes it look worse on him that he had the dream. Honestly, he shouldn't have told anyone, because it makes it
That's
look
so
like,
true.
you had extra, you even had even the fates or whatever, was trying to help you with this, and you still messed it up.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I will say this tribal actually did remind me of a couple other like new era tribal councils where sort of a similar thing happened. Ironically, one of them was the final eight tribal of Survivor 46, where Tiffany was voted out with an idol in
Hmm.
her pocket in kind of a similar way. Except in this case, Tiffany wasn't even in that position in the first place, and
Right.
she kind of outdid Ozzy in that sense. So there's that. And kind of as you were bringing up that idea of Ozzy trying to like play up to the jury and be all like, "Oh yeah, Aubrey, I hope you still vote for me even after I like spilled all this." This kind of reminded me of the final six round of Survivor 47, where Andy tells Rachel, like, "Hey,
Hmm.
the group's collectively voting for you. I hope it's not personal. I hope you vote for me." And then she turns the tables around on him and idles him out. So I think that was really what this particular tribal council is giving. It's just, I think it's just a lot of like the result of like the new era, like arrogance in a sense. Not arrogance per se, but I think because of the fact that like people play with such like a strategic prowess, right? I think a lot of players have just gotten really, they've mastered sort of the art of like corralling people into a sense of security. And so
Hmm.
I think with an older, like kind of one of the older era players like Ozzy, he's surrounded by a lot of new school players who have that ability. And so I think that's kind of a reason why it was a lot easier for them to make him feel comfortable in that moment, if that makes sense.
Well, I think that it was kind of a perfect storm because he's got Joe and Jonathan who are saying they're loyal or whatever they are. They live on Hypocrisy Hill, as Cerise
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
which they do.
They're not ever gonna be.
Right. And so he's thinking, okay, boys club. I got Joe, I got Jonathan, I got Rizzo, who I'm with, Cerise. It makes perfect sense for Aubrey. And you know what? Maybe it does, but none of that matters when you then go tell her the plan. You didn't need to do that. My thought process on that is I get where like maybe you would think that or like what Andy did. Like maybe you would think like, hey, listen, we're all about to hurt your feelings tonight. I'm going to go in there and be the one that warns you, the one that tells you, like, so like, listen, this is about to happen to you. Remember, I'm here for you. But the problem is, well, we've seen twice now. Don't do that because it doesn't work. It, that is what the jury speech is for, right? That is what the final talking to the jury is for. You don't need to tell Aubrey right now so that maybe you can have her vote later. Get yourself to the end first. And then when you get there, you can look at Aubrey on the jury and then tell her, I hope you voted for me or whatever. That's the whole point of the jury is to tell them then. You don't tell them now because you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And maybe, people got to quit doing that. That is not a good idea. I don't know how this ever would work, but I do think that in older seasons, I'm thinking like back in like even like when Boston Rob came back and ran Redemption Island or like in these older seasons, I do think that like you said a minute ago, there was a loyalty of well, we're not breaking. And Aubrey would have went home if this was a season back then. Those guys wouldn't have broke. I mean, even in like something like a Game Changers, Aubrey would have probably went home. And again, that's on Ozzy to not read that the game is different. That's on Ozzy to not know like Aubrey and all that she's done. And like Aubrey is one of the most disputed losers of all time. The Aubrey and Michelle Tribal is like I remember that happening. We go into tribal council that night and at least I did, thought Aubrey was winning. Everyone in my sector of the world thought Aubrey was winning that tribal, those of us that watched it live, because Michelle's edit was a little quieter, it was a little sleepier. And then Michelle wins. I had no problem with that. I really like Michelle. She comes back for season 40, right? Goes all the way to the finals again. I think that she's proven that she actually is pretty good. She's just a different type of player. But obviously that leaves Aubrey with this like, grudge on her shoulder, and then she just comes back consecutively. I think she played those first 3 seasons of hers all like within like a couple years. So this is season 50 is the first time that we've seen Aubrey play Survivor after having a long break, time to reflect, time to study, time to look back. Aubrey, you can tell she's a smart girl. When she got called for 50, she didn't just pack up and went. Like I bet she looked back, she rewatched, or she thought back, she journaled, she thought of what she went wrong. She came in with a game plan. She's that kind of person, you know. She was on like the Nerds tribe, I think, right? The
Yeah, the
Brains
Brains
tribe.
tribe in
Okay, I
Kauai.
would be too. Like we plan, like so she's prepared. So it's interesting to see Aubrey doing this, like actually watching her play with a break. We've never seen her play with a break before. But and that's what got Ozzy. So now here's the real question. Is this it? I had a coworker ask me this today. He said, is this Ozzy done forever? For the rest of his life, Ozzy never plays Survivor again?
I don't know. I think it's really yeah, it's a tough question to answer. I think a lot of like players who because there were a lot of players on this season that like previously I didn't think they would ever play again. Like I didn't think Chrissy would ever want to play again after
Hmm.
Heroes versus Healers versus Hustlers. I didn't think Coach would ever want to play, given that he
Right.
was invited back for Edge of Extinction but declined due to the fact that he was like, oh, my Survivor career is like over now. So I didn't expect to see him on the beach either. I didn't expect to see Jenna back either. So I feel like a lot of players, it's they make it clear at a certain point that their survivor journey's over, but then return like maybe 5, 10 seasons later. So
Hmm.
who's to say? Who really knows whether or not people like Ozzy are going to come back, right? And
Right.
truthfully, like he's had a very similar reaction, or I guess like sort of that bitterness in the moment to losing Survivor. I mean, you saw his vote out in like Game Changers. He was
Hmm.
pissed as hell about it.
Hmm.
Micronesia, he was like distraught. But he's always kept coming back time and time again
Right.
to,
Yeah.
get this chip off his shoulder. And I think that's kind of what a lot of players do, across their survivor trajectories. So, it's
Well, I think it
really,
was interesting with Ozzy. It seemed like, okay, Colby left and it felt like he kind of got like Colby lost, but it felt like he kind of got to heal his story in a way. Coach lost, but it felt like Coach kind of got to. Ozzy to me feels like one of the first old school players this season who left not on this warm note, not on this like, like this. They've had these like he left
yeah, he still has
mad,
something to prove.
sad. Yeah, like it was like the first boot that was of these older players where you were like, oh, we didn't wrap his story up in a little bow. Like we took time to Colby, what does this mean to you? Right. And Jeff's gonna ask all these damn questions. Coach, what does this mean? Da, da, da. And Ozzy, they were like, oh, you gotta go. You got voted out with an idol in your pocket. Like, I know the dude feels horrible. He just has to feel so bad. I watched some of his exit press today, this morning, and I'm sure it was rough, man.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Leaving with an idol in your pocket is never like it's never fun, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so I guess that brings us to the end of this episode where, it was very emotional. A lot happened. And it's kind of made me think a little bit about like the future of not just this season, but like Survivor as a whole. So I guess like on a broader sense, like in a broader sense, right? Like where do you think the show is headed, just in terms of like I guess just everything, like strategy, challenges, twists that are going to get implemented. Do you think celebrities might return at some point?
Oh
Like,
God. um, uh, I mean, I would be okay with a little short celebrity season that where they play. I would love that. That
oh, so
wouldn't
just
bother
like
me at
all
all.
celebrities playing
Yeah, like
Survivor?
put them out there. Yeah, put Zach. What? Who was it?
Zach
Zach
Brown.
Brown. Brown. Okay, yeah, I don't know him, but put him out there.
Yeah. Well, he's going to
Um,
play his guitar the whole time, probably.
he can fish. Um, anyway, I think that I'm very interested to see what is going to happen with 51 because when we look historically after a big season, and I just always think of 20, I always think, and going into Nicaragua, which is a mess. 21, going into 21. 20 was this crazy season. Now, there was a lot of drama when the finale of 20 happened because people wanted Parvati to win.
Right.
People did not like Sandra winning again. People were mad. Sandra's kind of claim to fame being the queen, that kind of happened retroactively. In the moment of 20, Sandra wasn't the queen. It was like, how'd Sandra win? But then that kind of built over time. And I love Sandra and I think she deserves her win. I love Parvati too. But so then we come back for 21 and it was just the deepest drop off. I mean, that season. And then 22 and 23. And it took a long time, maybe until like the blood versus water of it all to start getting our wheels spinning again. So after 50, they're filming 51 right now. I haven't I haven't heard any, I'm assuming it's not returning players, or we would know. I've heard nothing from anyone. There's no one's even talking online. I haven't seen anyone online talking about a survivor player being out there right now. We would have heard. So that's not returning players. So, maybe it's new people. I love that. I just hope that the show goes in a way, it has to always evolve. And I think they will evolve it. It's just, I hope it evolves in a way that I like, And I don't know what that is. Like, I would be okay with an old school season, but they're not going to do that. So I heard that this new season is starting with two tribes. That's the rumor. That now how long they're going to stay in two tribes, but I like that. So I guess if 51 is starting with two tribes, then that is something different, and that's a good sign. And I think that's the only good sign that we have so far. We
Yeah.
don't know anything else.
Yeah.
So
I
I
do know
would
that they're
love to
doing
see
the
it.
26-day format still for
I think we're
51.
going to be stuck in that forever.
Yeah,
And I don't
sadly.
like it, but whatever. I mean, you know what I mean? It is what it
Yeah,
is. I mean, I would love to go to new locations again. I would
that's true.
love that. I don't think we're going to do that again. So, um, I think that staying at Fiji and doing this same thing over and over and being Survivor 45, 46, 47, 48, even like now, when you say, like, okay, at this tribal at 43 or 44, like, it takes my brain longer to kind of pull up a picture of the cast in the new era than it does when you say Survivor China, right? Survivor Gabon. Like, it's like you just can start naming off the people. It was so stylized by its location and by the people that played. The seasons had a flavor to them. It was like, what are you feeling? And the flavors weren't always good, right? Like Survivor Thailand was something that was a flavor, but but at least they were. You could say, I'm kind of in the mood for Survivor China, or I'm kind of, or whatever it might be. Whereas like in the 40s, it's just a new group of people, like, and it feels like they're coming to the same beach, the same set, the same thing. It starts to feel like a fan experience to me. I've started feeling like I used to feel like I went somewhere to an exotic location to watch different personalities play the game of a lifetime. And now I feel like it's like you can apply to go to Fiji and play a version of the game that you always liked. It feels like sometimes the new era feels like it's Survivor at someone's birthday party. I really had that with Survivor 48. I really felt like I was watching people in the backyard playing Survivor at like Eva's birthday party or
Yeah.
whatever. And so, and I'm like, oh, and 50 has been so nice to not, it just has not, it hasn't felt like that. So I guess the argument there is they're still in Fiji. They're still on the same beaches. But whatever reason, the players, the history that they have has been entertaining enough to kind of come over that boringness of the
Yeah.
same, same, same. So if 51's new players, they're not going to have a history, and we're going to put them back in the same cookie cutter thing. Maybe bring themes back, I guess. I can't believe that. But maybe we just need to have the themes. There needs to be an element that influences how the players are playing that is not the same elements that everyone had 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. And if that means dividing them up by brains and brawn again or whatever, or healers and hustlers and heroes or whatever, go ahead, I guess. So
Yeah, so just basically every season should have like its own identity in a sense, or just some kind of
I would love that. I would love
distinguishing
that.
factor.
It's so important in the product that you're making that you have identities. When people say, oh my God, Survivor's at 50 seasons, what's more unique about the 50 seasons is that for like 75% of them, they have different identities. And that's what allows super fans to remember who played every season. That's what allows us to remember all these different things. Yes, you could rewatch them over and over, but I don't rewatch all these old seasons all the time. So the newer ones just start to kind of mesh together. And if you're going to continue to have Survivor 51, 52, 53, 54, they need to have their own identities to stand alone, to stand on their own. Because I always think about the future looking back, right? Like hopefully I live to be 80 at least. When I look back on Survivor when I'm 80, and let's say that they made it to Survivor 100, how do I feel about Survivor 40 through 49? I'm probably not going to even
Yeah, you're not
remember
gonna
them.
remember them.
But I'm still going to remember like Survivor 15, Survivor, All Stars or whatever. So I
Right.
just hope 50 really gives us this new era. That's God, I hate to even say this. What is it even going to be called? Post new
Post
era.
50, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, the post 50 era. I would love to just see that again. I would also like to see the casting be more diverse again. The casts have always been the diversity. The diversity is great, but where the people come from. A lot of the most recent casts have been very middle to upper class. A lot of like coastal people, people from the coastal elites, from the coastal sides.
Yeah.
And there's a
That's
reason
one
that
complaint
when
I've had with the new era. They're not
yes,
casting enough blue collar people, I feel. Because I
and
feel
not
like,
even blue, yes, not even blue collar though. What I think, yes, I agree, but blue collar plus people from different lifestyles. Like
yeah, just
I
different
live
walks of
in,
life and not just
yes,
like
I live in a
clerical
rural
white
area.
collar, people, you know what
Thank
I
you.
mean?
Yes. And I miss that. I don't need to see all of our coastal friends keep coming over and over and over. We had a Bryson Wind Presents had a watch party in St. Louis, and not counting Bryson Wendell because they're not from St. Louis. So if you do not count them, then there are three out of 700 Survivor players from the St. Louis, from Midwest, from the
That is
St. Louis area.
crazy.
Three they have cast. We are a
Wow.
huge, that's where I'm at in St. Louis. We're a huge city, diverse. It's got it's small town, but it's also got its city elements to it. Not as big as obviously New York or LA. But you've got Tasha, Sifu, which he's actually from the Illinois side, which is
Yeah,
he's actually
Chicago,
from where
right?
I'm from. No, he's from O'Fallon.
Oh,
So
Fallon, yeah.
right, that's the Illinois side of St. Louis. So the St. Louis Metro East, which is actually where I live in Illinois. So we're in the St. Louis area. And then I know this is terrible, but there was another lady there from Survivor, and I don't know who she was. I don't know what she was like an early like she was an early boot from a season some time ago, but it wasn't someone for me, but I just didn't know who she was. But so I really wish that casting would, yeah, just get back to these people. Like we need more coaches and more whoever the crazy person may be, James the Gravedigger or whatever. Like there's all these people out there, and I feel like now it feels like our cast just comes from a Survivor super fan party.
Yeah. Yeah, like I get what you mean.
Everyone
Like it
coming
feels
out
like
there
you're
is a
playing a
fan.
live reality game in
Yes.
Survivor as
Yeah.
opposed to like the game of Survivor.
Yes, 100% agree. I think lots of people agree, and I don't blame any of the people going out on the new era and playing. Like, you got your shot to play Survivor. That's not your fault. Go ahead. But it's got to be different to get out there and look around, and everyone is a super fan. Everyone knows everything, versus getting out there and having some people that are like, "What's going on?" I kind of miss that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's another thing I miss too, just people who have like no idea how the game works. They're just dropped
would
into like
love
this
a season
jungle.
of people. Maybe that's what I
Yeah.
want for
It's
51.
Survivor Gabon all over again,
Yes,
basically.
please. I would love that. Just get them back. Just bring all them back. But yeah,
Yeah.
let's do Survivor 51 called Survivor 51 No One Knows Anything. And all these people are like, "What are we
Yeah, or
on?"
like Survivor
I would love it.
51, no game bots allowed or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, I think that would also make for really compelling TV because like a lot of the I feel like a lot of the big personalities are the people who just don't know how to navigate the social dynamics of the game, right? Or people who just aren't like these like top tier strategists because like the number one rule in Survivor is you don't piss people off, and that's exactly what these
hmm
people are gonna do. So,
Yeah. But when everyone knows that, everyone becomes complacent. In any group of 10 people, one person is going to be the loudest. In any group of 10 people, one person's going to be the one that's doing the wrong thing. But when all 10 people are trained on how to play this game because they've studied every episode, the person that's the loudest is not as entertaining as Coach or Debbie or whatever. They're the loudest of the Survivor nerds that are playing the game, and that's not very loud.
that's
you know
true. That's true.
yeah, so it really becomes, I felt like Survivor 48 and 49 became very sleepy as a TV product. It was like,
Yeah, it's not
whatever.
like the Survivor that like we all grew up with.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, yeah, well, we're just about to run out of time, unfortunately.
Okay.
But with that being said, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast with me. It was a lot of fun getting to chat about Survivor with you. For those of you watching, be sure to check out Jimmy G on both Instagram and TikTok. He's got some great content on there. Also, be sure to stay tuned for more content coming for the Green Bananas Turned Yellow podcast. I should, again, like just be on a more consistent upload schedule these next few weeks. But yeah, I think that should be good for this podcast. Thank you so much again for joining me. It's
Yeah,
been
no
the Green
problem.
Bananas Turned Yellow podcast, and I'll see you guys next time.